Forecast.
Hey guys, this is a weekly forecast for April 26th through the 30th of 2021. Okay, we'll start off with the Nzdusd Eurusd pair. Okay, this is a weekly chart. We'll start off with an overview. Alright, so since this move up right here, started from this range right here, was solely based on momentum, in the long term, we are short biased right back down to these pivot lows right here. However, since there's a little bit of momentum long left in this move, in the short term, we are long biased right up to this pivot high as a target. Okay, so let's talk entries. Okay, this is a 4-hour chart. If you recall, the last long trade that formed was right here. And this long trade was stronger than all these short trades right here. And so we were expecting a little bit of move up. However, since our short-term target is way up here at this pivot high up here, in order for me to be comfortable to take a trade right up to this target right here, I wanted one of two things to happen. Now, one possibility is for price to pull all the way back down here and make an even stronger long trade. Now, the other option is on the weekly chart, so let me take you over there. Okay, so on this weekly chart, try drawing these trend lines from this pivot to this pivot right here, and the other one from this pivot to this pivot. Now, if price could fall back down and start respecting either one of these trend lines with compact price action on the daily, 4-hour, or 1-hour charts, then that is another possibility where I will consider a long trade right up to our short-term target right up here. Okay, so let me show you some things that were happening this week. So let me take you back to the 4-hour chart. Okay, so on this 4-hour chart this week, there was actually another long trade that formed here. However, this short trade right here was actually stronger than this long trade. Thus, price pulled back and stopped this out. Now, this is the first time that a stronger short trade on the 4-hour chart formed on this move up. So price is showing a little bit of weakness long at this point. So if you already entered long with this trade right here, the current levels that price is at right now is an obvious place to take first targets. Okay, so let me just show you those weekly gaps I was talking about. Okay, so on this weekly chart, there are many gaps in this general area where price is at right now. For example, there's one right here, and there's another right here. And there's another one actually right here too. So taking just the outermost price levels of all these gaps, that range I was talking about on the 4-hour chart is generally in this level right here. So from here to right here. And price is stuck in it right now. So if you're already long this trade, the first thing you want to see is for price to get out of this range. Now this could be on the daily or 4-hour charts too. And on the other hand, if you're waiting for a pullback like I am, then we don't want price to get through this gap range right here. Okay, so we'll just see if price could get through this range for the coming week. Alright, so let's go on to the Euro USD. Alright, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So because of this price action right here, being very strong short, and price still not going its potential distance, in the long term, we are short biased, right back down to this pivot low right here. However, because of a breakout of this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here, roughly 8 months ago, that would be right here. In the medium term, we are long biased right up to this pivot high as a target. However, on the weekly chart, price is still showing a little strength down. So in the short term, we are short biased right down to this pivot right here. Alright, so let me sum that up for you. Alright, so in the long term, we are short biased right down to these pivots. In the medium term, we are long biased right up to this pivot high right here. And in the short term, we are short biased right down to this pivot right here. Okay, let's talk entries. Alright, this is a weekly chart. Now the setup we've been looking at for the past couple of months is as follows. So there was a strong short trade right here, then a week-long trade form. So as price pulled back, we were short biased right back down to this pivot low as a target. And then the same thing happened again. Another week-long trade formed. So as price pulled back, we were short biased right back down to this pivot low again, right here. Now 2 weeks ago, the same thing happened. Another week-long trade formed right here. So at the current moment, we're waiting for a pullback as much as possible, creating distance to our next target way down here at this pivot low. Alright, so some possible levels that we could enter this short trade are as follows. So last week we were talking about this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here being a possible level. However, that level has been broken out this week. So at this point, this trend line is irrelevant. So let's just get rid of that. Now the next possible level will be this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. And price is right on it right now. Now if we could get some compact price action on this trend line right here on the daily 4-hour, 1-hour chart, then that may form a possible entry right back down to our short-term target right down here. Now if you don't understand what I'm talking about in terms of trend lines being broken out and being relevant, please watch my price action trading course, lessons 5 through 7, and that'll teach you all about trend lines. Alright, so there's a couple other things I want to explain, so let's go over to the daily chart. Okay, so on this daily chart, the last short trade was right here. And this short trade possibly already hit its target right here. Now when trades targets are hit, a lot of times price pulls all the way back to that stop loss high right here just to stop out the traders that are still in this short trade. So in terms of that pullback we're looking for on the weekly chart, it is very possible that price can pull back all the way up to these levels right here. And as long as price does not hit this pivot eye up here, we are looking for short trades right back down to this pivot low as that short-term target. So in that sense, the deeper the pullback, it is a better thing because it creates distance to our target, increasing our profit potential. Okay, so there's one last thing I want to mention, so let me take you over to the 4-hour chart. Alright, so on this 4-hour chart, the last short trade was right here, and then there was a week-long trade right here. And this week-long trade actually got stopped out already. Now that's the first time in this long 4-hour move that price made a stronger short trade than its long trade. So although price is still going up at the moment, it is starting to show a little bit of weakness long. Okay, but either way, in order to target that weekly short-term target way down here I was talking about, I recommend not taking a 4-hour entry, simply for the fact that there's a huge gap on this 4-hour chart. So let me just show you that real quick. Okay, let's zoom out and go all the way back. Okay, so that huge gap I was referring to is right here. Very big. Alright, so why I wouldn't take a 4-hour entry is because commonly in these huge gaps, if you take an entry on that time frame, a lot of times price may ultimately fall to its target, but before that, it often wiggles around a lot, stopping you out, then going down. It's simply a very hard situation to be able to have tight stop losses. So I recommend if you're going to take a short right down to that short-term target, you should take a short based on a time frame that is above the 4-hour chart. So for example, the 8-hour chart or daily chart. Alright, so let's go on to the pound dollar. Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So there was a weak double bottom right here. And since weak double bottoms typically do not go its target height, which is generally in this area, in the long term, we are short biased right back down to this pivot low as a target. However, since this weak double bottom still has a little bit of strength left in it, in the medium term, we are long biased right back up to this pivot high right here. However, currently on the weekly chart, since we're waiting for a long trade to form, and so we could gauge the strength of it, thus giving us a short-term bias, long or short, in the short term, we are neutral biased. Alright, so let's talk entries. Okay, this is a weekly chart. The setup we're looking at on this pound dollar is very similar to the Euro USD. So there was a strong short trade right here, then a week long trade form. So as price pulled back right here, we were short bias right back down to that pivot low as a target, and that target was hit. And at this point, we're waiting for another long trade to form. So then we could gauge its strength, then decide whether to be long bias or short bias in the short term. Now, if this long trade happens to be weaker than this short trade, then again, we'll be waiting for another pullback up so we could take it right back down to this new pivot low as a target. And on the other hand, if this long trade is actually stronger than this last short trade, well, then that's in line with our medium term bias. So we'll take it right back up to our medium term target right up here. Now, if you're having trouble understanding what I'm talking about, in terms of strong short trades and weak long trades, please watch lessons 1 through 4 of my price action trading course, and that'll clear things up for you. Okay, so there's a couple things that happened on the daily chart this week, so let me take you over there. Okay, so on this daily chart, there was a short trade that formed right here. However, since we're waiting for that weekly chart to form a long trade so we could gauge the strength of it, thus know whether to be long or short biased, the safest thing to do is to not take this short trade. However, in my case, if a couple things happen, I would consider taking this short right back down to at least this pivot low right here as a first target. Then perhaps depending on the price action that forms here, I may target this level right here. Now the only way that I would consider taking this short trade if price gives a very nice pullback. Now what I mean by pullback is a pullback to this trade's stop loss level, which is at this pivot high right here. So if price gives a very nice pullback, decreasing my risk and increasing my profit potential, then this is a short trade that I may consider. Moreover, another thing I would want to see is for the lower time frames price action. For example, the 1 minute or 5 minute chart is to show a weakening of price strength long. However, just remember, the safe way to trade the pound dollar at this point is to wait for that weekly long trade to form so we could gauge the strength of it and then decide whether we are long biased or short biased in the short term. Alright, let's go on to the dollar yen. Okay, this is a monthly chart. We'll start off with an overview. So ultimately, we are short biased right back down to this pivot low right here. However, before that, we're talking about the pullback to 107, then to 109, and then down to 101. So in the long term, we are still short biased right back down to this pivot low. However, since we're waiting for this long momentum to slow down, in the short term, we are neutral bias. Okay, let's talk entries. Alright, so in terms of waning long momentum, the first thing that we wanted to see are 2 red candles on this weekly chart. Now, these 2 consecutive red candles had to be formed on the weekly chart, for this long move up was initially based on this weekly long trade setup right here. So if long momentum was based on a weekly long trade, then we also want to see weakening momentum on the weekly chart also. Now that first stage was cleared. Now the other thing we wanted to see for waning momentum is on the monthly chart, so let's take you back there. Alright, so on this monthly chart, we're looking at the breakout of this trend line from this pivot to this pivot right here. That breakout being right here. Now seeing that this trend line was very strong, a breakout of this trend line assures that there are many people seeing this as a breakout long. And now at this point, we're seeing a retest of that trend line breakout right here. Now since we want to see some long waning momentum, we want price to close right back into this trend line, thus causing a failed retest of this breakout. Now ultimately, we want to see a failed breakout on this monthly chart. However, seeing if the daily and weekly charts break back into this trend line does increase the possibility of the monthly chart also breaking back in. And for the time being, the daily and the weekly charts already broke back into this monthly trend line. However, for the final confirmation of this waning momentum, let's wait and see if this monthly chart breaks back into this trend line. Okay, so let me show you some possible setups that may form to enter this short trade right back down to this 101 pivot low. Okay, we'll stay on this monthly chart. Now try on these 2 trend lines, one from this pivot to this pivot right here, and the other one from this pivot to this pivot right here. Now after this candle closes, if price could pull back and start making compact price action on these trend lines on the weekly, daily, or 4-hour charts, then that is a possible setup that we could see in the future to target that 101 pivot low target. However, there's one more possible scenario, so let me take you to the weekly chart. Alright, so as I mentioned earlier, this entire move up was based on this weekly long trade that formed right here. And this weekly long trade's main target was at this 109 level. Now price reached 109, then overshot it to this 110 level. And at that point, price started coming back down. Now in a setup like this, where price already hit its target and is in a very strong downtrend on the long term, there are times that price does not give pullbacks for short entries, and price just falls right back down to stop out the traders that are still in this long trade, and that stop loss level being right at this pivot low right here. Okay, so for the time being, just understand there's 2 possible ways that we could enter this short trade. One is a pullback to those monthly trend lines, and another is straight down, in which case those entries will likely set up on the lower time frames. So for example, the 4-hour or possibly the daily chart. Okay, one final thing I do want to add is on the monthly chart again, so let's go back there. Alright, so for those of you that are already short this trade, price is right at its first target level right now, at these gap levels right here to right here. So one thing I do recommend is that if you're already short this trade, it may be wise to take some profits at this gap level right here. Alright, that's it for the weekly forecast. I hope you guys have a great week, guys. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.